video is brought to you by Squarespace. More on them later. Wow, we're finally here. The full Dinner in America video. This has truly just been the little engine that could of a movie, which we will get into, but I've championed this movie from the moment I saw it. Which, to clarify, was all the way back in 2020. I have been championing this movie since I saw it at Sundance that year. So if you've been here for a while, you definitely saw it on my best of Sundance lists, my best of the year so far lists, and my best of the year lists for a few years in a row because it took so long for this thing to get a proper wide release. I literally bought a UK Blu-ray player so I could get this Arrowhead release. They were kind enough to send me some goodies like this shirt. So yeah, I will not take it down a notch with this movie. And I've always just really championed how aggressively adorable and punk rock this movie is. It's just this really interesting and conflicting blend of themes, tones, and emotions that just makes me so happy that it exists. And I'm so ecstatic that it's resonating with people now 4.5 years after I saw it. It just instantly felt like one of those movies people would discover and share around like SLC Punk and Debs. And it's just so cool to see that finally happen with this movie. So for all the horrible things I can and will say about TikTok, there is a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of magic in there where movies like this kind of find their audience. There's just something so pure about the journey this movie takes you on, and I always have just the biggest smile on my face when it finishes. I know there's points through the movie where I'm like, oh, that might be a little rough, but then it just, when it rounds it all out in the end, it works. I will point out my biases where they exist, though. I am a huge fan of coming-of-age style stories, and I was the young punk high school kid trying to figure out the world, playing in bands. So stuff like this just works for me. So what is Dinner in America? Starring channel favorite Kyle Gallner of Jennifer's Body, The Passenger, and most recently Strange Darling, and Emily Skeggs, written and directed by Adam Rehmeyer. Dinner in America is a coming-of-age black comedy that picks up with Simon, an abrasive punk rocker on the run who meets the very eccentric Patty after he crashes out of a drug trial. And unknown to both of them, Patty is obsessed with Simon's band, and specifically Simon's persona in the band John Q. As the two journey through the Midwest suburbs, Simon teaches Patty how to stand up for herself while Simon learns to be a little bit less of an asshat. And I like to put this in the post-adolescent coming-of-age category, which is basically just coming-of-age stories that are following people that are kind of already in their 20s. They're trying to find their place in adulthood, who have had maybe a failure to launch in life or just kind of left not knowing what to do next. Something I'm sure so many of us relate to. You go through school, you maybe go to college and university, and then you're just kind of what now? Just the type of movies that deal with the growing pains of figuring that out, and I love it. Your Shiva Babies, your Francis Haas, your this. And while this may not be the movie for everyone, I really love how people are connecting with it, how many different people are getting something out of it, because it does have so many of these different aspects to really rally for self-acceptance, living your weird authentic self, and finding the people that don't make you feel like so much of an outcast or an underdog. Just the little island of misfit toys. I so hope and assume that this movie is encouraging people to start bands, which is great. We need that. We need more Riot Girl music. But if you have a band you're looking to promote, look no further than the modern online magic of today's sponsor, Squarespace. And easy has never been easier to craft. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for creators and entrepreneurs to stand out online. So whether you're looking to make a portfolio, advertise your band or brand, sell products or services, Squarespace makes it easy to bring your ideas to life with their design intelligence to help create a more personalized website. They even have print-on-demand options built into the website to bring everything all together into one space. A Squarespace. As mentioned, I've used Squarespace for years, back when I was in esports, when I used it as a portfolio, and now I just have a website dedicated to my mostly okay YouTube presence. I may look panicked on my homepage, but with Squarespace, it was easy to connect all my social media accounts in a few simple clicks, feature videos that matter to me, festival coverage, and more. If you're selling products or services, they make it easy to manage payments all in one place with Squarespace Payments, and they make it easy to paywall certain content with options for one-time fee or a subscription. Combine that with their excellent SEO tools designed to get you discovered by more people more often, Squarespace will have you well on your way. So check out Squarespace today at squarespace.com/AmandaTheJedi or by scanning the QR code on screen to start a 14-day free trial and get 10% off your first purchase. As mentioned, Dinner in America premiered at Sundance 2020 after being filmed in 2018, and then the world pretty much shut down. Even though it had a lot of good buzz out of the festival, it didn't really get picked up. There's just a lot less money going into investing movies and taking chances on these style of movies, less distribution options, and a lot of the industry was just waiting to see where things would settle. So a lot of my favorite movies out of that festival kind of got the shit end of the stick. It wasn't until May of 2022 when it got any kind of distribution. It did a limited theatrical run. Arrowhead released the UK DVD, and then it hit VOD in June a couple weeks later. And it wasn't really until it hit Hulu in September that it got a decent wave of support. There was a lot of critical and audience support going into this movie, but it still just didn't fully take off until apparently it started going viral on TikTok around September of this year in 2024. Interestingly enough, it wasn't too long after Ray Meyer's follow-up movie Snack Shack released for streaming after being delayed during the strike, so dude's just having a rough time with unavoidable world events messing with his movie releases. But part of what helped this go so far online, outside of just like the general fun edits that people were doing with the movie on TikTok, is the song the main characters make in the movie called Watermelon. A real trimmed down, rocky pop, grunge, heavy distortion tune that feels so much like the movie. Like equal parts heavy, distorted, abrasive guitar tones with the sweet as pie vocals. It pulls together the whole movie perfectly. And I gotta say, there is just genuinely nothing better than a movie that deals with music delivering on that music. It's always really sad when it doesn't. But the online support for this ended up being so strong that people started asking their local theaters to play the movie, which kicked off an entire theatrical run that's been more successful and coveted than their initial theatrical run in 2022. We're talking multiple dates with director Q&As, some with cast and director Q&As. I'm still a bit mad at myself for not flying to New York, but I sadly just didn't have time to take 2 flights to New York. But those screenings around the world are completely selling out. Like we're talking first, second, third, and fourth screenings selling out. Something that's almost entirely unheard of with a little movie like this, or actually like entirely unheard of. And that is just such a beautiful thing. And every time I see Kyle post that another screening sold out, it just fills my soul with joy. Like the whole run this movie's having would make Simon and Patty so damn proud. And it's kind of leading to this movie absolutely ending up in conversation for, you know, how long do you have to wait for something to be called a cult classic? Like as over the top and heightened and at times like overly aggressive the characters are in this movie, there are aspects of them and their dynamic that are just really speaking to people. While also noting that a lot of people find Simon, especially in the beginning, a bit overly aggressive, a little bit too edgy, and yeah, he is pretty shitty in a lot of ways, but I really think that it's the tenderness that comes out of that harshness that makes this movie so sweet by the end. Like you need him to start at one point so that he can like grow and be better by the end. The way he makes sure that Patty's more confident in standing up for herself and the way she got through that harsh exterior is a beautiful thing. And I do think that there are a lot of people out there that are very angry, who have misplaced anger, who don't know where to put that anger. And it is those things like personal connections with people who understand you and music and movies that bring you out on the other side of that. But I gotta say, while a lot of Simon's language is like very much not cool, it was a lot more normal in the early 2000s. The movie never really says what era it's set in. Like I got the impression that it was kind of like a 90s, early 2000s thing, but there's this one scene where Simon mentions not wanting a sea of teenage girls with cell phones at their concerts, and the director says it's because he's trying to create one of those like timeless bubbles for the movie, and mostly just not wanting cell phones around, which I also totally get. And in terms of Patty, while no specific labels were ever used, which was intentional, I'm seeing a lot of different neurodivergent people really relating to her and how over-medicated her family has her to try to maintain some weird normalcy and control over her that doesn't exist, and how infantilized she is by everyone other than Simon really rang true to a lot of people. And that character success really just comes down to Kyle Gallner and Emily Skeggs bringing those characters to life so convincingly and passionately. But let's dive into the movie. And again, one of the main complaints I saw is that some people just didn't love how abrasive and dickish Simon is right out the gate. Maybe it's because I knew people like Simon, some of them who had a heart of gold, some of them that were the worst people in the world, but it did just immediately feel authentic to that style of person. But as mentioned, the movie starts with him falling out of a drug trial.
Sorry it didn't work out.
You said 1750.
1750 if you do all 8 days.
Before he sets another participant's lawn on fire after hearing her dad call a football player the N-word, or just because he self-admittedly likes to burn shit. And yeah, I can see how some of that might come across as like this over-edgy teenage fantasy, you know, someone else lashing out in the way that so many young people wish they could at various points in their lives, but specifically doing it after he's created so much of that chaos himself. But then we meet Patty, who, while 20 years old, is regularly bullied, still controlled by her parents, which leads to complete freakouts and being severely over-medicated.
You need to take it down a notch.
Shut the hell up, Kev!
Her brother is played by Griffin Gluck, who absolutely needs to get off the shitty Netflix movie cycle. Check out Big Time Adolescence if you haven't seen that yet. And her favorite band is Psyop, and she just gets so worked up listening to their music and sends the lead singers some poems and underwear pics. Which, I'm just gonna put this out there, I'm sure you all know, but don't do that. Even if the recipient might enjoy that, do not send people you do not know who have not consented pictures or videos of yourself doing anything to yourself in any state of undress. Doesn't matter your gender, just don't do it, but we will continue on. So after setting fire to the hedge and all the property damage, the cops are really after Simon. Apparently they already were because he just likes to burn shit, so they already had this crappy wanted sketch of him ready to go, but he's also dealing drugs, so if he gets caught, that's definitely not going to help the situation. But it's while ditching the cops that Simon meets Patty, who's just been let go of her job at the pet shop because her boss claimed he didn't want to pay her increased minimum wage. And the two have actually run into each other before. They're of similar age and apparently had a class together at one point before he got kicked out. So after a bit of back and forth, she invites him home with her, where he lies about being a missionary so he can secure a place to hide out for the rest of the week.
You mean you told a lie?
And it's here that we realize that he's the one she's been sending those panty pics to, because he's the mystery masked singer of PSYOP, John Q. So this is interesting on a couple levels. Patty seems fairly repressed sexually, but I think it's just more of a lack of experience and never having had a clear way to explore it versus a total lack or desire, because I mean, like, we saw the panty pics. But Simon enjoys poking fun at that just a little bit too much before he realizes who she is.
You know I'm fucking with you, right?
In a way that you're like, oh no, what is this guy gonna do to this sweet girl? But she's into him even before she knows there's any kind of musical connection, because he doesn't tell her right away and is definitely still processing the fact that he enjoyed these pictures from this weird enigma of a person he now knows is responsible for them. But instead of dealing with that, he sneaks out the window to confront his band because she let him know that PSYOP canceled their secret show to open for a band called The Alliance, who he believes are posers. Because he's the purist, he turned to punk rock when it felt like the rest of the world shut him out, but they want to make it as musicians, and this guy's promising to pay for their masters and get them set up releasing album. But he just wants to DIY his way around and says that he's out if they don't put the secret show back on. With some added hostility just before he leaves because someone seems to have tipped off the cops as to who he is, because they've been turning up outside his usual crash pads, and there's a $5,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. But this is where we start to see some of Simon's more unconventional kindness come in. After minorly blowing up Kevin's life by telling him he's adopted, Simon realizes he's entirely too uptight and gets him high. And sure, telling a teenager to smoke weed every day to deal with anxiety and stress may not be the best advice, but it's still a form of kindness to get him to chill out. And that kindness is starting to extend to Patty, who I think he's really coming around on because he seems genuinely upset that he missed the shot to get a kiss, but he's pushing her to value herself when looking for another job before realizing that her last boss didn't pay out her paycheck before firing her. So they're gonna go get it. And here begins our journey, but not before Simon realizes that there's a dead cat on the lawn that she's just been leaving there, which he points out is very weird.
That's like serial killer shit.
It is?
Yeah.
Do you think I'm weird?
Oh yeah, no, you're fucking weird.
Absolutely iconic line. But they almost immediately get accosted by the track douches that like to sexually harass her, who he tries to shut down, but he can't really fight for shit, especially not when someone's holding him back. So he takes care of them in the only way he does know. Trades a Xanax for access to a truck, they go get the cat, rest in peace poor Floof for what they're going to do, distracts the track douches, knocks them out, burns their tracksuits, and then puts the cat between them to start taking pictures.
Wake up, cat fuckers!
With the threat of haunting them with that picture until the day they die if they ever say shit to Patty again. Not the most elegant way to deal with the situation, but it's more than literally anyone else has ever done in her entire life.
Are we going to jail?
Probably.
So Simon's really starting to get the full view of how the world treats Patty and what she puts up with. Not only from those track dudes, but also her own parents who don't think she's capable of doing that much. So when they get to the pet shop, Patty's confused to see a new girl working, meaning she was just flat out replaced.
You're a nice enough kid and all, but you're a little slow.
Which is such a dick thing to say, but at least Simon's got her jazzed up enough to get that check and take him to lunch. Which she wants to know if it's a date, and he says no, it's just a shitty lunch, and besides, you're in love with John Q, who again, she doesn't realize is Simon.
But he's not real, he's just my music boyfriend.
And I really like that. You know, clearly John Q is a real person, and clearly she should acknowledge that when she's sending him weird things, but I love that she's not like delusional in a way that she thinks they're actually together, which a lot of people unfortunately do. I've personally dealt with that. She's just like, no, that's not real. That's just my music boyfriend. Because she's genuinely interested in Simon. She just also really loves and appreciates PSYOP's music. And Simon agrees to take her to see them the next day because he's also into her.
Well, is that a date?
Yeah, it's a date.
So they kiss for the first time in this fast food joint, and Patty gets to show that she's a lot sharper than people give her credit for when he tells her how good she is at it.
Guess all my practice with Kevin really pays off.
What?
I'm just fucking with you.
We love a callback. And they go on to have an adorable arcade date. I love an arcade date. A date that will only be topped the next day with their music making date. But before that, the brother accidentally gets the parents high on brownies, which finally chills them out enough to give Patty a little bit more independence. But cutting to the next day, just before they start working on the song, he reveals that he is in fact John Q by revealing to her that he has all of her letters. And specifically saying that all those poems she's been writing are actually badass songs. So the combination of that genuine compliment and him being like so into her words, which means he's so into her mind, the genuine appreciation from someone that she appreciates so strongly for their musical talent, leads them to hook up, and they absolutely match each other's freak.
Violate me.
And immediately follow it up by writing Watermelon, the cutest dang little song.
The watermelon slammed into your driveway.
And this is what I mean by the movie being so simultaneously aggressive and cute. Like, he's being moved to tears here. That hard outer shell is being worn down. Kyle is just so damn good at bringing that vulnerability in. Like, his eyes do so much. So Simon realizes that Patty just really possesses this innate talent, not only for the writing, but putting it to music, and values that so much. It really just puts them on so much more of an even playing field, where he realizes that in a lot of ways she is so much more talented than him, and he's just so excited to be a part of that with her.
That was tits.
Is tits good?
Tits is good.
I guess this scene was shot towards the end of the second week, and it was the moment where the crew fully realized what kind of movie they were making, and were just so fully in on it now, because it's just so undeniable, and it makes all of these like kind of mildly concerning moments early on feel like so worth it. So as you may have noticed, this house is massive, and he didn't have to break in, and all this gear and equipment is his, and that's because his parents are clearly extremely well off to absolutely loaded, but he's been outcasted from the family for not fitting in, and then just, you know, the life he's lived since then. And I always find it so interesting when you get these staunch rebel personalities lashing out at everything who come from some kind of wealth and or extreme upper middle class nature. Like, you definitely see the same thing in SLC Punk. So a lot of it can just end up feeling like cosplay, but there's really no denying that Simon, for better and worse, it just walks the walk. This family does not like him because he's never been like them, and it's only compounded through the years of hostility that comes out of that. To the point that it kind of makes sense that he's not welcome around. He sells drugs, he does drugs, and he likes to start fires, and probably cost them a lot of money over the years, but you can just tell that this is a cycle where the anger came from the poor treatment growing up, which led to worse treatment, which led to more anger. So even though he's literally doing nothing wrong at this particular moment, no one's willing to even listen to him except his cool younger brother who gave him the key, who is also the brother in Freaky Friday, which we love here. But the sister, massive bitch.
What's a pyro again?
Not the sharpest stick, is she?
Don't talk about her like that.
Like what?
Like she's subhuman.
That is just so unnecessarily cruel when she's just part of this whole facade of a family.
Do you think I'm a retard?
Don't you ever talk like that.
Because he appreciates her as she is, for who she is, and thinks that she is talented and cool as fuck. And because she's just so unapologetically herself, she is punk as hell. But this leads us into the show, where Simon immediately pisses off the label exec, so two of the bandmates rat him out as wanted to pay that guy back for the promotion work he did. So as they're playing the titular Dinner in America, the cops show up. And man, they even make everything from this point on sweet, like they reaffirm the relationship.
You're my real boyfriend now, right?
Yeah, I'm your real boyfriend.
And now it's his turn to send the naughty Polaroids and letters to her, seemingly a kinder person sharing his better prison food with his cellmate, while she starts a riot girl band and finally learns how to stick up for herself.
You need to take it down a notch.
Ending it all off just vibing to their song, waiting for Simon to get out. And that's the movie. It's just this cute little misfit toy love story coming together, getting two people to pull the best traits out of each other to be better in the long run. Simon can just be a little bit less abrasive, at least to the people who don't deserve it, drop less slurs hopefully, and still maintain his ideals. And she doesn't have to see herself as smaller and less than because the world tries to put her down. It's just this simple slice of life kind of thing, and it works.
Remember when I told you that yesterday was the best day ever? Today is even better.
And just a couple of other things before closing it out. There's obviously a lot of fun little dinner scenes to play into the title, how those sequences show that all these families are really dysfunctional and horrible in so many ways, but they play these niceties to seem more together, the passive aggression, and Simon just throws it off by being overtly aggressive. I also know that about 40 minutes of this movie had to be cut for time because a lot more ended up being filmed. Like, apparently the original took a lot longer for Simon and Patty to actually meet, and we got like a whole extra day with Simon and his dynamic with friends and how he ended up losing the drug drug trial money. I'm genuinely so interested to see that, because apparently there was like an entire dance sequence with like the dog cams. Yeah, this just ends up being such a solid comfort movie to toss on. There's like a handful of movies that I kind of like marathoning with it when I'm kind of doing things around the house. There's also this scene where on a near empty bus, this lady sits right next to him.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And it's just such like a simple thing, but I love it so much. Yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking down below. Did you love it? Did you not so much? Is it this like precious thing for you now? Did you discover it because of TikTok? Did you watch it because I told people to watch it 4 years ago? Probably not, but hopefully maybe. Did you, like me, have a little punk phase back in high school? But thank you all so much for watching. Check out Dinner in America if you're lucky enough to be in one of the cities where it's playing, or, you know, harass your local indie theaters or other theaters to do a screening of it. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. All my other social medias are listed down below if you want to harass me there. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later. I snapped too soon. It's tits.